Hey everybody, I'm Ross Johnson from the Sound of Tomorrow show. You're listening to WAYO 104.3 FM Rochester. Coming up on the show, we're going to tell you what to do when you meet a person in a wheelchair. That you don't, there's more what
Say,
not to do.
say hello.
Say hello. Greet greet the
We're
person in the
done with that
wheelchair
segment.
in a friendly fashion. We just did it, so that's all there is to it. So that's part's over.
That's the show.
That's our show. We're going to talk about TikTok and the trans community and what's going on there. It's not great. Probably no surprise if you're listening to the Sound of Tomorrow. And Heather's going to tell us about some scams. She's picked up some interesting scams. That is all coming up next on the Sound of Tomorrow. Stay tuned. WAYO 104.3 FM Rochester. That's a thing coming up any minute now. Here we go. But first,
Unbelievable.
what?
I cannot believe what I'm reading.
What?
Did you see this?
I don't know.
But did you see this?
I don't know.
What? Did you see this?
I don't know.
It says here that our president of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Yeah, I know the one. Yes.
Is looking to raise taxes.
Oh, okay. Well,
to 20%. 20%, Ross.
Okay, yeah, but that probably doesn't apply to you.
Why wouldn't it apply to me?
Oh, I mean, you probably already pay more than that.
What?
Oh, my goodness. Sweet. Sweet Heather. Sweet. Oh, sweet Heather. No. Okay. So here's where we need to offer to you a little bit of tax education. We're going to start with the word marginal in marginal tax rate. Let's just define that.
Oh, okay. No, I don't need to know any of that.
Okay. It's just that, my sweet Heather. Little sweet Heather. So cute. For a variety of reasons, poor people often pay a higher percentage of their taxes than do rich people. It's regressive payroll taxes. It's tax shelters that aren't available to people living paycheck to paycheck. It's just that it's going to be very hard to understand how taxation affects your income versus that of a very, very wealthy person without, doing some basic terminology. So,
Okay. When I said I don't need to know about any of that, I meant literally. I don't need to know about any of that. None of it applies to me.
oh, sweetie. Oh my goodness, Heather. Okay. You're so cute. I love it. I love it. I love you. How adorable you are. No, see, like so many lower income Americans, you're a victim of a system that penalizes the poor.
Lower income? Poor? What are you talking about?
Okay. Okay. This is another thing I love about you. Oh my God. You're like America's sweetheart. America's destitute sweetheart. No, see, you're a very contented person naturally, and I love that. I get it. As long as you've got food for your kitty and flowers for your table, presumably scrounged from a neighborhood garden, and I guess a can of beans to eat, probably. You're fine. I know that about you. But that does not mean
A
that.
can of beans? Can of caviar, more like it. Ross, do you think I'm poor?
Well, I mean,
Does my name mean nothing to you?
Heather Zykowski? Of course it doesn't mean anything to me. It's literally just a stew pot of syllables all strung together.
Oh, no. Ross, my full family name.
Heather McGillicuddy?
Well, yes. Heather McGillicuddy, Hilton Hearst Rockefeller Estee Lauder Vanderbilt III. Or is it fourth? Viscountess of Penfield. Did you truly never know any of this?
But okay, you never let me meet your parents at your childhood home because you're too embarrassed by the conditions.
Oh, no, sweetie. I never let you meet my parents at my childhood home because, frankly, you would never fit in at one of Mother's balls. You can't even do a box step. How are you going to imagine a quadrille? I didn't want you to be uncomfortable.
Okay, well, I'm a little uncomfortable right now.
Oh, me too. My taxes might be going up to 20%. I might have to sell off one or two Fabergé eggs from my collection just to break even. It's really too much.
Wow. So, okay. So, I guess this is a good time to ask, knowing all this, I don't suppose I could borrow $50.
Yeah, you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps is what you can do.
Meh, 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 meh.
I'm gonna go
Can I
have
have a
some
can?
caviar.
Can I have a can of caviar?
You can have a can of caviar.
You and your caviar.
I
It's
love it.
ridiculous.
I have
Knock it off.
I have caviar in the fridge right now.
It's too much. Too
No,
much with you.
it's just right.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross Johnson, your favorite co-host.
And I'm Heather Tchaikovsky, the babe with the power. Thanks for tuning in to the Sound of Tomorrow on WAYO, LP Rochester.
It's snowing.
It's snowing. It's snowing, so guess what? We're miserable.
Yeah.
We're cold. We're upset. I have a feeling that I had a newspaper delivered yesterday, and I have not gone outside to check because it is too cold.
Do you get the newspaper delivered?
Yes.
Okay. So, and you don't have it. So presumably I
It's
can solve
outside.
this mystery. It's probably out there.
Probably. They don't, you know how it goes. They don't quite always deliver it.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Like sometimes they miss a week.
All right.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten the paper in a while, so.
Yeah, it's nice. For years and years and years, my parents get the paper for me and my sister.
Okay.
It's a nice little gift.
Many years ago, the DNC had an editorial about that where they came out against gay marriage.
Oh no.
And I've held a spiteful grudge ever. We used to subscribe and then we stopped, and I've held a spiteful grudge ever since.
Yeah, now I might have a spiteful grudge too.
Yeah, it's just something I will. I don't know, and maybe it was like one editor who worked there for a week who did that. I don't know, but I've decided to be spiteful about it. Right?
No, be spiteful. They deserve it. No, I would completely be spiteful.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm not going to get that paper just out of spite.
I'm not saying you don't have to. I'm not like
I'm going to call my folks and I'm going to say, cancel my subscription. Thank you so much. But I now have a spiteful vendetta against the DNC.
I love a spiteful vendetta. I really do.
Me too.
It's, and I don't like spiteful vendettas in other people unless they're sharing my spiteful vendetta like this one.
Yes.
But, in general, I'd say I'm anti-spiteful vendettas, but I do love them in my own life.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, that's how it works. That's the best kind to have.
And it makes things so much easier too, because, like when we're going out to eat.
Yes.
Which doesn't happen nearly as much, a whole lot these days, but it's like,
right.
Oh no, can't go there. No, I have a spiteful vendetta about that place. No, spiteful vendetta. They're fine. But I just don't like the food. Spiteful vendetta. It narrows it down. Really
it
easily,
really does well. Because there are a lot of places people will be like, oh, we could go here. And I'm like, I don't want their all lives matter barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't go there. I
mean,
also the one place I'm thinking of, I don't enjoy the taste of the food, but now I've got a spiteful vendetta reason not to go as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple bars I can think of that I'm like, I'm not going to the racist dress code bar.
It's
great. I don't have to, it's wonderful.
And it's so easy too. I love it when it's there's a perfect storm of spiteful vendetta, and I sort of don't like the place that much anyway.
I know, yeah.
It's chef's kiss. It's just a magical.
It really is. I've got to say, I'm thinking of one place that I'm actually super duper bummed that I now have a spiteful vendetta against.
Yeah,
because I really liked it there, and that's always very disappointing. But I'm still holding on to my vendetta.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You want to hear a story that's kind of indicative of how I'm doing these days?
Is it very long?
It's very short.
Okay, good. Then yes.
So
absolutely.
I'm at the grocery store, Tops, as we all know.
Right.
And I'm buying cheese, and I happen to notice that the Easter butter lambs are out. So I say aloud, because I talk to myself all the time, oh, I've always wanted a butter lamb. Well, why don't you buy yourself a butter lamb then? Yeah. And I choose out a butter lamb.
Oh, this is you talking to yourself. I thought...
This is a full-blown conversation with myself as I lean over the butter lambs.
Because I don't know if that's weirder or not than my image of like someone just appears over your shoulder and is like, why don't you buy a butter lamb then? I don't know which is weirder, but I'll go with your version. Is pretty weird too. So, all right.
So I get up to the cashier, and of course I put the butter lamb last. And I get up, and he's like mumbling under his breath. He's all like, oh, they're never doing their work. They're never at their station, always dilly-dallying.
This is the butter lamb.
No, 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 no.
Oh.
This kid is talking about his coworkers, and I'm like, I love today's youth. They say dilly dallying. But as the butter lamb approaches, I say to the checkout kid, oh, and can I just have the butter lamb with me, please? Don't even really know why I'm buying it. It's apparently my new pet. We're going to have some good times. I said it just like just like that. And the kid, like, his eyes just lit up with delight and he just laughed.
That's good because I mean, I guess you don't, because I would have been a little uncomfortable, honestly.
We're gonna have some good times. Like, what? And I left the store thinking, I'm in a really good place right now. These things are obviously, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
The butter lamb is in the fridge. I don't know.
So
We haven't hung out.
So what are you going to do with the butter lamb? You don't know yet.
I don't know. I think it's probably just going to stay in my fridge for a long time.
You could probably just eat it. I mean, like just bite its head right off. Just go for it.
I could put it on toast.
That's interesting because I was in Tops recently, and I don't know if they just have a particularly eye-catching butter lamb display, but I too was noticed. I didn't have the whole interior monologue about treating myself to a butter lamb, but treating myself to some good times with a butter lamb. But I did note the butter lamb display. So congratulations, Tops.
Yes.
Good job on the butter lamb display.
Yeah, definitely. They do set them out in a very alluring fashion. So I don't know. That's what's going on here. Me and the butter lamb and Nigel, we hang out.
Sure.
It's good times.
What's going on here? Nothing.
Yeah, snowing.
Nothing. It's snowing. I'm just living my life in the winter, in the dead of winter in Rochester again.
So in trying to find stuff to talk about for today's show, I really fell down quite a rabbit hole, and it was pretty fun. And there is a bit of a story. Hopefully this is interesting to how I got on this train.
Okay.
I was on NPR, and there was a story about LinkedIn having a bunch of AI generated profile photos. And these AI profiles are actually marketers trying to do sales. And then it gets a little bit deeper in that the companies that subcontract with the sales firms didn't know that the people doing the sales weren't actually real. They were just AI creations.
Okay.
And there's a team that went through LinkedIn and found some kind of wild number of AI generated pictures. So that made me start thinking about a conversation that I'd had with a friend of mine a couple weeks ago, I guess now. And this person was talking about a mutual friend of ours. And he was like, yeah, I think he says he's in a relationship, but I think he's fallen for a scam. I think it's one of those Russian bots. And I was like, oh no, is he sending money? And he was like, yeah, he is.
What?
And I was like, oh no. And he won't listen to anyone. And he's like, no, he thinks this is his girlfriend. And I felt really bad.
Yeah.
And then the friend with whom I was talking was like, I don't even know how people fall for these. And I was like, oh, let me tell you, I completely see how, because I play a lot of those word games, like Words with Friends and stuff online.
Like Words with my potential Russian mail order bride. Yeah.
Right. But I get a lot of people who say that they're on oil rigs. And then, like, sometimes for real, like, they'll immediately say, like, we have a future together. I've fallen in love with you. And I'm like, ew. No, you haven't.
Wow.
But the thing with them is they're like, oh, here's my Gmail, add me on Google Hangouts, here's my number, move over to WhatsApp, you just need to download it. And even though I do actually have WhatsApp, I'm always like, no, I don't have it. And they're like, oh, install it, it's easy, it's free. And so then I'm usually like, well, do you work for WhatsApp? What's going on? Like, what's going on here? But I think the thing is, like, they get you to go over there and then somehow they get your money. So today, well, that's
Like,
the thing.
I mean,
That's why today seeing the LinkedIn thing made me think of
yeah.
the conversation with my friend, which made me think of the like, somehow they get your money. Because then my friend was like, well, how? I don't know. And only today did I realize, like, why have I never Googled this?
Yeah.
And so, Ross, I want to tell you about the oil rig scam. And it was pretty weird looking this up because you would think this is so common that there would be like a Wikipedia page or something on it,
Yeah.
or even stuff reported on, for example, a news source that I would more routinely visit, like Slate or NPR or something like that. Woo-wee! I've got an article here by Ruth Jessie from dumblittleman.com about
Huh.
oil rig scams. And
You didn't have to send anybody any money to get this information, did you?
I mean, honestly, looking this stuff up, I was a little bit like, is this somehow tied into the scams? But
Because that would be smart.
right, it really would. But a preface I want to give is that if you know someone, or if you yourself, any listeners out there, have fallen for any of these scams, the people doing them are really clever and they're really persuasive and they're really seductive. I'm not trying to say I'm so cool or something or so savvy, because I knew that this oil rig thing wasn't true and I knew not to go to WhatsApp and Hangouts and everything. I'm
Yeah.
just kind of a jaded, cynical jerk, I guess, who's been doing this podcast for way too long. So by no means are we trying to say here, like, how could anybody fall for these scams? It's
Right.
easy and it's sad and it's dangerous and
Yeah.
it's exploiting good people. So what usually happens, and I guess this also happens on dating sites, I've only encountered it in, as I said, like Words with Friends or that other one that I play.
I love that you're meeting men on Words with Friends, by the way, but go ahead.
Well, that's the other thing. Until today, I honestly always thought these were bots.
Yeah.
Now I think they're actual human beings who
Yeah.
are actually like trying to lure me in particular in and get money from me. Like, I really
And
thought
as
I was interacting with bots.
right. Which seems so preferable, but
I know,
yeah.
right? But so I mean, I guess. So what usually happens is a lot like what I described. You get a note that says like, "Hi, where are you playing from?" And it seems like a person is just a person who's playing Words with Friends. And sometimes people do just want to chat, they're bored or whatever, and they want to know how the weather is in your city. So you never really know if it's an actual person who's just like going to talk about the game until it starts getting to the clues of, they'll ask what you do for work. Me personally, I don't really like to say anything except something very general.
Right.
But then they'll say they work on an oil rig. They'll ask where you are, and they'll always be from the US, but then they're like somewhere overseas or in the Gulf of Mexico working on their oil rig.
And this isn't just what you looked up. This has happened to you more than once.
Yes. They're generally a widower with a child who's in their teens. And then they want to like continue your friendship, and they want you to move over to WhatsApp or Google Hangouts.
Mm-hmm.
And
they want you to move over to the Gulf of Mexico.
Well, see, that's where for me, like, the interaction stops. They'll get mad. They'll keep insisting that I go to WhatsApp or Google Hangouts. And then when I'm like, no, No, I don't want to. No. And then eventually I just stop writing. It depends on how much I'm not a good person. It depends on how much I feel like fighting that night.
Gotcha.
Um yeah.
I'm sure this is very healthy, but yeah.
Yeah, it's please, did you hear my story about the butter lamb? I mean,
Yeah.
um but so apparently once you move over to another platform, what happens is like a whole team of scammers is assembled. And I from what I read in the articles on the dating apps, there will be like kind of credible group photos. Like there'll be a picture of a guy and then he'll have said like I'm widowed and I have a 20-year-old daughter. And then there'll be like a girl who's 20 in a photo and they'll be like so it's really like very cleverly staged.
Hmm.
But so I guess what happens is you go over to the other platform and they start chatting more, they're making promises of love and relationships and everything. But since they're on an oil rig, they can't actually call you. So there could be some of that sketchy stuff about like, no, we can't get together because I'm on an oil rig. Or no, we can't
Right.
use the phone because I'm on an oil rig. So that's
Which
a
maybe is true, maybe isn't. I don't
I
know. I
mean,
feel like they
someone's
probably
got to
they
work on an oil rig, and I'm not trying to impugn the good name of actual oil rig workers here,
right, right.
but this is a common enough scam that, like, I found a number of posts about it.
I bet in this day and age there are phones on oil rigs too. Maybe I don't know. I don't know that for a fact, but anyway.
Yeah, cell service, I guess, can be a problem because they're so far from any towers. But with satellites now, you'd think they'd have it.
Yeah.
You know,
I bet there's some way to make a phone call.
Um, but so I guess what starts happening, and I saw a handful of scenarios, but your new online love will
Sure.
start asking you for money to come visit or for money to buy emergency supplies on the ship or for money to like take care of their daughter who's just fallen ill. And I
Now what
believe
kind of
they'll yeah,
sorry. What kind of time frame are we talking about here? Like,
I have had people within the course of 5 messages start telling me that they're in love with me.
wow.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. Like, I don't know. And again, like you said, I don't want to be superior because there's, we're all sort of vulnerable to different things in different ways.
mhm.
But I have a really hard time imagining like it would take quite a while to get me to the point where I would even consider like sending some stranger money from you know what I mean? Like that would again, different, different vulnerabilities, different levels of
Right.
education, different levels of loneliness. And, so I
Right.
get it. I'm not trying to be all superior about that, but it just seems like it's hard for me to imagine that wouldn't take quite a while before I would get to the point of being like, oh, okay, yeah, I might send you some money.
Yeah, same here. And I'm honestly because I personally haven't been like, "All right, yeah, I'll add you on Hangouts. I think you're pretty awesome." I don't know how fast it goes. I do
Yeah.
know just within the word game, like there's huge declarations of love and it's like I have told you that I'm in business and I've told you I'm playing from New York State, USA. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, um, but another thing I've heard they'll do instead of just asking for money to be wired over, which I don't even know how one wires money now. PayPal, Venmo, it's probably got
Yeah,
to
I
be
don't know
that,
if that's a
right?
separate. Yeah, like can you still go to Western Union? I don't know.
I have no idea. Or
Yeah.
they ask
I assume
for
I assume they'd explain it to you
they asked for
if you
gift
asked.
cards.
Okay.
And I guess what the scammers do because I was thinking, like, what are they going to do with gift cards? But they sell them, and so if you send $100
Okay.
gift card, apparently they can get $80 for that $100 gift card. And if they're scamming, 10 other people at the same time, you know.
Yeah, well, and that's it. I mean, I assume this is, sort of like any other kind of spam. I mean, I assume it's a volume business. Like,
Yeah.
you hit up a ton of people all
Yep.
day, every day, and you really only need to, you don't need to hit a lot of them.
Right.
You just need to get, even one is probably a good, a good
Yeah.
days or multiple days work.
Mhm. Yeah, and it I also, like I said, I thought that this was somehow bots. It does
Mhm.
turn out it's actual people, working as a team. Another thing I've seen that really helps me figure out within a couple messages when I'm talking to someone who isn't who they say they are is, like I said, I've always had them say, like, "I'm from Houston, Texas, but I'm currently working in Argentina on an oil rig." But they'll have weird phrasing,
Mhm.
like as though maybe English isn't their first language, but they already told me like they grew up in Texas.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you seem to not speak English like your first language, but you said you were from the US. Like that seems strange. Are you sure?
Yeah, and I'd say that's a good tell with a lot of things, and not just the fact that English wouldn't be someone's first language, but so many of these, with like spam things and
Mm-hmm.
emails and calls, you get people who are like telling you they are from the United States,
Mm-hmm.
um, but seem to have only the most rudimentary understanding of English, which again is not, there's nothing wrong with English not being your first language, but
Oh, right.
it's a thing to consider. It's definitely a
Yeah.
factor to, thing to factor in. If someone's like, yeah, if someone's like, I'm born and raised in Texas and I'm working on a
Right.
oil rig in Argentina. Um, and especially I think with you and I too, we probably pick up on more having worked with people from different countries.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely pick up on, even if all the words are there, you definitely pick up on some syntax that is, or
Yeah.
some ways of arranging sentences that are,
Mm-hmm.
you can sort of you get a sense of like, oh, this person is maybe from this place because that's how,
Mm-hmm.
all the words are there, but that's not how, someone born and raised in America would construct a sentence.
Yep. Yeah, and I wish I could think of some specific examples,
Hmm.
but it is definitely like that. It's just weird phrasing. Like, huh?
Yeah.
That's not how someone who learned English like as their first language in America would say it.
Right.
Um, so I'm trying to think of other things that I've run into. I think I've pretty much covered it. I did get a funny one. The message was, "Are you a woman of God?" I was like, so yeah, I don't know. I should probably, now that I know that these are real people, I'm way less likely to interact with them. I was always trying to like break the algorithm. I wanted the bot to like get all
Oh, like
weird.
just to start, just to blow up with the smoke coming out of its
Yes, that's what I
ears.
would
Yeah.
try to do. Not that I'm worried about hurting these people's feelings, but I have to admit, like, I've been trying to break the bots. I thought it was funny. Uh, but I guess maybe it's better that they're taking their time with me trying to break them than finding someone who might actually send them money.
I it's sort of funny because I just got a new Twitter follower today.
Yeah.
um, and this is and again, this is, the we all know that sort of thing, like the social media followers. So this is nothing new, but where they sort of follow you or friend you or try to get you to engage. But this is Angela from Colorado, born and
Oh,
raised.
sweet.
And she wants she'd like me to know that she's a very simple and understanding lady with full packages. Give love out
Wow.
to receive love back. 100%.
Sounds like a charming new friend for you.
Yeah.
So
She
after the
says,
show, are you gonna give her out some love?
I'm thinking about it. She might be, if she's on an oil rig. Um, She says, "My new look today for Sunday. I might be smiling for face, but I'm sad inner of me. Only a
Oh, yeah.
wise man can relate." Born and
Yeah,
raised in Colorado, lives
that's
there
right.
currently. It's like, I don't know if I
That
believe you.
that's how they talk in Colorado.
Yep.
Never been there, but that's what I hear. Yeah, so
But
things like that. That's great.
there's a
Um,
lot of like you see a lot of, it's funny because it seems like there's definitely overlap because you see a lot of that, like you said, like the like I'm a man of God, I'm a woman of God, and also not that there's a conflict between being a person of God and also being highly sexual necessarily, but you get a lot of like, am a woman of God, also text me for super sexy times, that sort of thing. Like, I mean,
yeah.
and again, that's okay. I'm not saying that's, wrong, but that seems to be a thing too, I guess.
Yeah, and you know what? That's another thing. They tend to refer to me as like my dear,
Okay.
which is a little weird.
I mean, I call you sweetie, so it's all right.
That yeah, but you're allowed.
Oh
Um
yeah.
yeah, and I this is also my own personal experience with this is people who are portraying themselves as men, assuming that I'm a straight woman, which I am, but it's not like I have a Words with Friends profile that I remember.
True.
But so I'm getting people who are saying that they're men trying to like marry me, which they're not, obviously. They just want money.
Right.
I don't know how this goes when it's a woman scammer. I say that in quotes because you don't know. Like it's all fake. It's all
Yeah.
made up. But when they're pretending to be a woman going after a man.
I bet they're very similar, but I mean, culturally, I'd wonder. There probably is. I mean, I think with with like the spam social media stuff and whatever, it's probably very similar. But with that scenario, I don't know. It'd be interesting because you would think like culturally. Well, no, actually, I bet it's the same. I was gonna say like it's a little different. Like culturally, it'd be a little different. A man asking a woman or a woman asking a man, but I, it's kind. It I think it'd be more likely. Like if you were a man and a woman was texting you, that's probably even again, culturally, that's probably a little easier sell in a way. Like, maybe she doesn't work on an oil rig. I don't know in this scenario. Again, I'm not writing these things, but probably like, oh, I'm lonely and just I'm in a
Yeah.
place where I need help. I mean, that's probably again, if you're, that's probably an actually an easier sell. So it's probably a very similar playbook.
Yeah.
And
I
again, who
think it
knows?
is.
Who knows the who knows the gender of the person you're talking to? You have no way of knowing.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand now, it is usually a team.
Okay.
And now I'm wondering, even if the same person, like if I talk to someone for a while, is it even the same person or
Yeah.
just someone behind this profile? The other tell is they're usually pretty bad at Words with Friends.
Okay.
Because they keep playing because they know like I don't respond to messages if I'm not playing the game.
Okay.
So they'll keep playing, and that's like I do like those games a lot.
Hmm.
I feel like it's good for my brain too, thinking about all those words,
Yeah, and about all these scammers.
about all these scammers. Well, I mean, honestly, today I realized like how did I not look this up? How was I just like, oh, the bots, I'm gonna try to break the bots. Like I knew not to trust them, but why had I never looked up anything about this?
Well, next time maybe you can try like seeing if somebody remembers a specific piece of information that you
I
gave
have
them before to
tried
see if it's
that.
the same Oh, you've tried it.
I
Yeah.
have tried that, and they've actually come up with it,
Okay.
which is impressive. But all I can think, even if it wasn't the same person, they could just scroll back,
Right, right.
you know?
That's true. I mean, everything is laid out right there, so it's not like
Yeah.
you couldn't get the information.
Yep. Because the chat and Words with Friends doesn't like disappear daily or something.
Yeah.
Um, but so I've got a short little thing from the article from whatever that weird site was, dumblittleman.com, which is a blog.
Mm.
'How to protect yourself from oil rig scammers.
Okay.
While coping with a false account, there's not much anyone can do, particularly when the fraudster puts a lot of effort into making it look real. But check the profile for details. Keep an eye out for any red signals, like red signals being used in this article.
Yeah.
Like few statuses or picture postings, a genuine account will likely be older with many images of friends and followers and dozens of events, whereas a fraudulent profile may have only a few pictures, perhaps 5 to 10, and no events. Again, this doesn't really work when you're on Words with Friends because there's not a profile, there's not events and stuff, but maybe if you go to one of these other platforms, it's more like a social media. That's where it would
Right.
be good to look for that in a profile. Cross-check the background information. Fraudsters on oil rigs, they're not actually on oil rigs, are known for concealing their genuine identity. It's critical that you conduct a brief background check on the person you communicate with over the internet. Keep in mind that there are a lot of oil rig fraudsters out there if you're looking for love over the internet. Double check their narrative and look up their names on Google. Genuine profile will have multiple active accounts on various social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And it does say that when anyone claims to work in a remote location with poor phone coverage, you generally don't need them, since they won't be able to provide you with the care and companionship you deserve in the first place.
Yeah. And
However, I
isn't
think
that,
that's a little too simplistic, because if it's someone who's like chatting with you and asking about your life and claiming they love you, I can see how it would be easy to be like, well, I don't. Oh, because another thing, often they're just about ready to be done with their stint on the oil rig.
okay.
That's right. I forgot. Or on occasion, there's also one with like someone who's a doctor who's from the US but is working in a remote country, but who's about to move back to the US.
Okay.
Yeah. See, so
I mean,
much.
yeah, and I guess like I don't know. Just this is well, so I mean, I can say this, but I mean, it's such a this is how like people meet anymore. So I mean, the Words with Friends thing seems a little easier,
Yes.
like in the sense of like, especially if you're aware of this situation,
Mm-hmm.
maybe maybe don't go on Words with Friends expecting to meet your oil rig boyfriend
Yes.
for life. But I guess other social media scenarios, um, so I can be like in my head, I can be a little smug about the thinking about this from the, like, the Words with Friends perspective, like, but other social media scenarios, somebody starts chatting you up and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So I can I can see it. I
Yeah.
mean, I can see it, and it's um, I guess awareness, just awareness that this happens, and awareness of the specific scenarios. Of course, somebody will come up with a new scenario the minute everybody figures this one out. But
Yeah. There
um,
there are so many of them.
yeah,
Like it's wild. But the article does offer one additional tip in that, like, before you send any money, ask them to send something to you
oh, that's a good idea.
or do something for you.
Yeah,
You know, I would caution against sending anyone you don't know very well money.
yeah, yeah.
People
Just
make
in
up all
general.
kinds of sob stories. And I mean, I like to be charitable, but
Mhm.
not to online scammers.
I mean, I would say, there are a couple levels here. One is the just protection of yourself and your feelings, and that's a little harder because you can engage with someone online and develop feelings and all that. I would say the second level is if that person is asking you for money, a person you've never met
Yeah.
and maybe haven't even had that long a long distance relationship with, or an internet relationship with,
Mm-hmm.
I would say it is there is it is probably a 99%, it is probably extremely unlikely um that that person is legitimate. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, at that point you've probably put in a little emotional work into it, but I think that is extremely unlikely that that person
It
is
really
legitimate. And if
is.
someone's, and if someone is if someone, and I guess in the tiny chance that they are legitimate, I mean, is that someone that is going to be a good someone
Right.
who doesn't know you and hasn't met you and is begging you for money? Um, let's say there is a legitimate scenario there. Even in that legitimate scenario, that would be a real red flag in any relationship. So,
Yeah.
um,
And
you know,
yeah, and from
maybe
what I've
maybe just probably don't do that. And again, it's
yeah.
harder in terms of meeting and interacting and possibly starting a relationship, but just the moment that person asks you for money without ever having met them or even called you,
Mhm.
that's probably the time to hang up. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, and from what I read in these articles too, I haven't had this happen to me yet. Apparently, like once it escalates, they'll also like have their daughter start getting in touch with you, you know, if the money is for like a medical emergency she's having. They'll
Hmm.
have the daughter get in touch with you. They'll have the daughter's doctor get in touch with you. These people are not daughters and they're not doctors. Well, I mean, if they're women, they're daughters of someone.
Yeah.
But it's all a team or all the
Right.
same person just using different handles.
And how many people's doctors are going to like, if
Yeah.
you need money for a procedure, how many people's doctors are going to start texting randos from other
Yeah, like
countries
on
on your
WhatsApp,
behalf,
right?
like on WhatsApp? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Another thing you can do is if you're on a place where there are lots of pictures, try a reverse image search.
Okay.
See if that picture is stolen from somewhere.
Yeah.
A lot of the pictures are stolen. And then the last part of this I have, and I'm sorry, I just find this like fascinating. And again, I was so surprised I'd never gone down this rabbit hole before. I started thinking like, well, what do if you do fall prey to one of these scams? Like, what do you do? I don't think there's much recourse for getting your money or your gift cards back, to be honest.
Probably not. I
But
mean, go ahead.
what you can do is report it at reportfraudftc.gov, and you can actually report it to the FBI.
Okay.
And if you feel like you are being like you're interacting with one of these scammers and you're, for example, on Google Hangouts,
Hmm.
you can actually report the person.
Okay.
On Words with Friends, I'm going to have to check. I have not. There's a feature where you cannot accept a text, but I don't know if you can report a user. And as I said, until today, I thought I was dealing with bots, not actual users.
Hmm.
But now I'm thinking maybe I should start reporting these people just to try to do my part to keep them from finding people to prey upon.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of the best you can do.
Yeah.
And if that gets, it at least makes it a little harder for scammers to scam someone else.
Right. And I'm
You
sure they
know,
have multiple accounts. It's probably too simplistic to think if I block John B. Smith or whatever, there's not a John C. Smith also out there
right.
that's the same people.
But again, it gets harder and harder. And I think there are some social media networks are a little more sophisticated in the ways that they're able to, if they care to, and
Hmm.
care to put the effort forward. I mean, there are ways to, identify those sorts of things. And some social networks are more sophisticated about it, more interested in doing it. And reporting does sort of help at least those algorithms find those things.
Yep.
Again, you're right. It's not it's not a cure, but it's sort of the best you can do, and it's not nothing.
Right. It's not nothing. And I know on dating apps, you can like report people.
Yeah.
And apparently these oil rig scammers are also on those. So yeah, this really like I got a lot of new information today and I thought it was super interesting and I hope other people thought it was interesting too and maybe even helpful. I don't know.
I love it.
Yeah. Report it to the FBI. Wow. When I saw that, I was like, whoa. That's
So
from socialcatfish.com, where I'm sure I got several viruses on my computer.
of course. I think you got a lot of viruses everywhere. So um,
Vaccinated.
hey everybody, you're still listening to WAYO 104.3 FM Rochester.
The scam report.
Let's do it. You know what? I've got a quick thing and a slightly longer thing, and I don't know what kind of time we've got, but let's you want to talk about wheelchairs?
Yes, I
Okay, so
do.
this is a wheelchair user, and this is sort of a random person from Twitter, so I can't like verify this, but this all made perfect sense to me. There's nothing scientific here. This was a, and a lot of this seems common sense, but this person, so this is from Ada Hubrig, Hubrig, and the Twitter handle is at Adam Hubrig, ADAMHUBRIG, if you want to look them up. So this is a wheelchair user who had some tips, and most of this is going to be pretty. I think, hopefully, maybe I'm giving our listeners. Well, I'm going to say I'm going to give our listeners enough credit that this is maybe. Some of this is going to be maybe obvious, but this is stuff that happens, and I definitely
Yeah.
know from disabled friends that it can be a problem. So,
Yeah. Can I jump in with one? Like,
yeah,
can I try to guess one?
yes, we have 8 minutes, but
I
go
want to
ahead.
know. I want to know if this is on the list. Do not ever grab someone's wheelchair and start wheeling them without asking them first.
Yes, particularly if you're taking them home. That is something they definitely don't like. You just you definitely don't do it to get them out of the way, but definitely don't take them anywhere without their permission. No, it's absolutely not. Don't do it.
Yeah, just like don't touch it
Yeah, don't touch it.
without permission. I'm sorry. Go on though. I want to hear. I just wanted to ask about that one because I was like,
Yeah, no, it happens. So,
oh yeah, that's what I've heard. It's terrifying. It's like what?
and that was actually their third point in this
Yes.
list, and a lot of people responded like, "You would not believe how often people just grab my wheelchair and push me out of
Yeah.
the way."
Yeah. That's what I've heard. Yeah. Terrible.
Um, remember that wheelchair users are people. We're just sitting down while you're standing up. Basically says, don't make it weird. There are people you've encountered sitting people in your life. Don't be weird about it. Um, respect our autonomy. If we're speaking and you have a question for me, don't ask my partner who is standing. So don't assume that like this person, and we do that with disabled people. Not we, hopefully, but I mean, we do that with all sorts of disabilities where we assume that they are not capable of answering a question or being responded to, being approached to directly.
I will also
um
tell you that people sometimes do that with women when the woman is with a man.
yeah, not about you. So
It's-
tell me more, able-bodied woman. um
no, but
I'm just
is
teasing.
this Ada who's writing? This is a woman in a wheelchair, right?
This is a non-binary person.
Oh, okay. All right. Non-binary person. All right.
Yes.
Excellent.
um but so Ada mentions that even doctors will sometimes refer to their partner when
Ask the
they're standing
standing
right there.
partner.
Again, like you said, don't touch a person's wheelchair or any other mobility device
Nope.
without permission. Just don't.
Yep.
Not yours to touch.
Nope.
You're not entitled to wheelchairs users' medical history or traumas. Again, that applies to any disability. And saying what happened or anything like that, no matter how well intentioned, that can be difficult for people, and again, particularly if it's someone you don't know very well, it's not really any of your business. So, um, and this goes to, and Ada says here, they don't know if it's because specifically because they're in a wheelchair or because they're non-binary, but people like to know about their genitals, and do their genitals work, and how do their genitals work, and what's going on with their genitals. So
sure.
again, as with as with trans people, we run into this. None of your business.
Right.
None of your business.
Yep.
Just none of your business at all. You can be as curious as you want. That's
Yep.
fine. Curiosity is fine.
That's to ask about way, way later in your romantic relationship when it's time to talk about that stuff.
Absolutely. A corollary to the one you mentioned. Don't let kids don't let kids crawl around someone's wheelchair. If you're watching kids, don't do that. It's not a toy. And Ada says this happens not infrequently. Once a kid ripped my ostomy bag off of me. That's not.
Oh my gosh.
That's not great.
No,
so don't do that. This is another one that I think we talked about a couple years ago when George Takei had posted something, sort of a joke about, it was an image of someone, stepping up out of their wheelchair to get something, and to George Takei's credit, actually sort of apologized and did an explanation and was like, okay, this was something I didn't, this was not funny and I didn't understand this, but Some wheelchair users, like myself, Ada says, don't use the wheelchair full time. I can walk stand about
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes at a time and use a cane for short distances. If you see a wheelchair user standing using a cane or whatever, don't assume that we're faking. We're not, we're not using a wheelchair just for fun. And I think that's something that hopefully people, I know that was a, that was a discussion a few years ago because of that post
Mm-hmm.
and that joke that was going around. And I hope a lot of people caught on to that, of the idea that not everyone is 100% fully, a wheelchair user 100% of the time. People
Mm-hmm.
have different levels of, people have different abilities to, stand or sit, or as everyone's different in that regard. And again, just because you see someone getting out of their wheelchair, doesn't mean that that wheelchair is not a necessary mobility device.
Yeah. Yep. I've
um,
definitely heard like a lot of wheelchair users or other people who use mobility assists, they'll get so much judgment and people be like, oh, well, you don't need it anyway. You don't get to say what somebody needs or doesn't need.
yeah, exactly. It's
Like,
just,
it's their
and
stuff. Like
Ada sort of,
they decided they needed it for themselves, or a doctor decided they needed it. Like,
well, and presumably, again, with most of these things, it's, even if a person did decide to use it for themselves, that's still not your concern and not for you to judge.
that's the thing.
But
People don't get to say.
mobility devices they're not cheap. They're not
They're
easy to come by all
not.
the time. So this
Mm-mm.
is, in almost every case you see someone using a mobility device, it is with it is with consultation of their doctor. It's a medical necessity.
And it's
So
for a reason.
it's for a reason, and that's it. Even if it's not, even if the doctor didn't send them home with it, people are, let people trust people.
Yeah. I've got better things to worry about also.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was it. And again, I think to our audience, hopefully most of that is fairly obvious, but it's good to remember. You know, if nothing else, I like the part about, like, don't be weird. It's just, if someone's sitting and you're standing, that's that's a scenario you can handle. That's a scenario you've
Mm-hmm.
encountered in life. Um, you don't need to be you don't need to be a weirdo about it. Um, but it's the stuff that, again, the sort of ignorance, some of it's a lack of education, a lack of understanding, and educating people can be helpful. And I try not to get too judgmental about people who just haven't encountered a lot of disabled people and maybe don't have that thought process or that education to know what to do. So they make it weird. Um,
Yeah.
but there's, on another level, there's no real excuse for it in this day and age, and again, to not have the basic understand, the idea that people are frequently, like, shoving wheelchair users out of the way, or
I know.
that kind of thing. That is, like, I mean, like, just part of it is, don't do something to a person with a mobility device that you wouldn't do to somebody without one. I mean, you wouldn't, like, pick up you wouldn't pick up an able-bodied person and move them out of the way, or shove them out of the way, hopefully. And if you would, you're a jerk regardless. But
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the thing. Because when I think of somebody just pushing someone's wheelchair out of the way, I think of the times I've been like lifted and moved. It doesn't feel good.
yeah.
I mean, it does,
Also,
like, if I consent to it, like, that's fine. But when I don't know what's happening and it's a surprise, that's not fine. I think too some bad things can come from someone trying to do a good thing.
mhm.
Like the moving someone's wheelchair, I could see somebody having the good intention of like, oh yeah, the room's right down the hallway, let's go, and just grabbing the wheelchair, like not meaning to cause offense, but still
Right.
that's a situation where ask.
Ask.
I
Yeah. I
could
mean,
also see somebody barging in front of someone who's in a wheelchair to get the door. I
mhm.
feel like it's way more polite to go like, "Hey, can I get the door for you?"
Yeah.
Instead of barging around. I could see someone grabbing like a water bottle out of the hands of a person in a wheelchair and filling it for them. A lot of that stuff where your heart's in the right place and you're really trying to help. I think the key is just to ask. The person can say they'll fill their water. They can say like, wow, thanks. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I just, it's good to be helpful, but it's also, um, you don't want to go into a you don't want to go into an interaction assuming that assuming that the person is helpless and assuming that the person has no ability to make their own decisions about whether they need help,
Mhm.
um the the talking to the partner, like you said, that's something we do in other situations in society. I've known a lot of deaf people in my life, and people will talk and ask questions of the and that's a little more of a tricky situation in the sense that there's an interpreter there. People will talk to the interpreter, which is not the it's and I think that's an education issue in the sense of it's not really appropriate to direct your question at the interpreter, even though you're sort of talking to the interpreter. And that's one where I get it's a little confusing because you're getting you're getting the information from the interpreter, so you want to talk to the interpreter who's giving the information. It's not really appropriate because you're interacting with the person you're interacting with is
Mhm.
the deaf person, so that kind of thing. I mean, there are there are little more complicated situations, but
Mhm.
yeah, like you say, for the most part, it's don't just don't you know don't don't be a jerk. Don't shove someone out of the way. Don't And again, don't assume that someone wants your help without
Uh-huh.
specifically asking them if they want your help.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, because I do think that that's where people get into some very awkward situations when actually everybody's trying to be nice, but it turns out like not a nice situation for anybody.
Yeah.
Because you know me with awkward, I try to avoid it at any cost.
Yeah. I don't know. Just don't be weird.
Or, I mean, be weird like me. Just talk to yourself in the grocery store and buy a butter lamb and say weird things about it. It's an
Yeah,
innocuous kind of weird.
yeah. I mean, next time I would ask the butter lamb if it's comfortable, but
You know, the butter lamb is actually made out of butter.
okay.
Yeah, it can't respond.
Huh.
I'm not to the point yet where I believe it's sentient. I will
Making it
let
the
you
perfect
know.
man.
I'll let you know if I get there.
Yeah,
Next
please
week, I'll
do.
be like, Ross, I opened the refrigerator and the butter lamb, it spoke to me.
I'm sending it money. um
Well, its daughter needs an operation.
daughter needs an operation. Oh lordy.
She's still at Tops.
Well, listen, friends, we promised some interesting trans stuff, but that's okay. There's some this is actually about some shady stuff involving social media and algorithms and trans people and whatever. So it's what it's unfortunately it's evergreen. So we're gonna do it next week. We're gonna
All
talk about it next
right.
week. Hopefully not evergreen forever, but
Oh, hopefully not.
it's I love I don't know. Stop just be nice to trans people, everybody, and disabled people is the takeaway from today's episode. And Heather, who's clearly going through some stuff, don't necessarily be nice to oil rig workers unless you know for a fact that they really
Yeah.
are oil rig
If
workers,
they're
in which case you
legit,
should be
they're
nice to them.
working hard,
Right.
but
Right. They probably could use your emotional support, but don't send the money, especially without so much as a phone call. So that's our takeaways from today's episode. Of course, we'll be back next week with Sound Tomorrow on WAYO 104.3 FM Rochester, where we'll have some more of this same kind of stuff. Probably. Who knows? Bye. Stick around or don't, but stick around. It's worth it.
Yeah.
The hard part's over. You did the worst part right now here. You got through the hard part. So I'll just keep going.
something smells like nail polish remover.
Huh.
I might be having a stroke.
You might be. This is when the lamb might be talking to you. All right. Let me pull up my thing here. Oh lordy. I don't have my script.
Those lambs are only silent. It's the silence of the lambs. I actually saw that movie. It was scary.
Oh, poor Heather.
I
Where
know.
is my script? Here it is. Okay.
You got it?
So why does someone with your kind of money need to do a no budget podcast?
Oh, it's totally a tax shelter. Sound of Tomorrow Industries LLC Inc. saves me a bundle.
Okay, but you won't even get like an HBO subscription to watch the shows I recommend.
You don't get to be rich by just throwing money around.
Ugh.
Invest
All
in butter lambs.
right. Buy, sell. All the butter lambs. Made a fortune in butter lamb futures.